the United Football League, which we're going to get into with our next guest, and a lot of moving and shaking in the United Football League. Market relocation, new venues, new divisional format. We're going to get the latest and the lowdown with our next guest, who I'm excited to bring on board, making his All Access Football debut. He is truly, ladies and gentlemen, a trailblazer when it comes to the alternate football landscape. I mean, when I tell you nobody covers not just the United Football League, but he covered the United States Football League, formerly the USFL, the XFL. Of course, how could we forget the Spring League, the fan-controlled football league, which I was proud to be part of, short-lived, as well as the European League of Football. He also covers the NFL, but today we're going to talk about the United Football League with our good friend James Larsen, joining the show on his way to the Columbus Aviators press conference. How are we doing today, James? Good to see you, man.
I'm doing well, Rick. Appreciate you having me on. And it's the life of a trailblazer, the life of a hustler. I'm actually joining from McDonald's outside Columbus right now to make sure we can make this show work.
Because you're dedicated. You're a hustler, baby, and we love that. And we appreciate the time making a pit stop here. We're under construction at the All Access Football Studios. Hopefully it doesn't.
Well, hey, I apologize if it sounds like there's construction behind me. It's McDonald's, so we're
outstanding, man. Well, let me just get your overall thoughts, because we see the United Football League. They announced 3 teams relocating. They've also announced a lot of new venues, of course, a new playoff format. What's your kind of overall grand scheme takeaways here of all the changes?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that what the UFL has been doing the last couple of years, they do a lot of good, but like the overall business model, it wasn't necessarily sustainable. And I think that's what we're seeing with Mike Rapoli coming in as a new owner of this league and really being like, look, guys, like we have to be in smaller stadiums. We need to get back to putting the fan first. I mean, that's something that spring football is supposed to be all about. I mean, you remember the XFL with Vince McMahon back in 2020 so well. I mean, it was all about the fans. It was all about that transparency. And that has kind of been lost the last few years with the UFL. And I understand there's been complications and you had the merger and there's a lot to work through. But having Rapoli's vision coming in, establishing smaller venues, really wanted to get into these local markets and connect with the fans and market to them and let these cities know that, hey, a UFL team is here and they're ready to play. We're going to sell out 15,000, 20,000 size stadiums. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to the future of this league.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mike Rapoli. I want to ask you, because he's the newest investor here. Obviously, he's got his money behind it and he's backing it up as good as he can. Noticeably absent has been The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and I don't know if he's scheduled to be at the press conference today, but it seems like Rapoli has become more the spokesperson. And what's going on with The Rock? Like, he hasn't really been at the forefront or done much of the marketing. What do we make of that?
You know, I've kind of called this from the get-go when the leagues merged, is once it wasn't his XFL anymore, and once it was the UFL and they merged and there was other people involved, he just cared a lot less. And that's been evident. I mean, he's only been to one UFL game over the last 2 years. That was the opener back in 2024 down in Arlington at Choctaw Stadium. He has not appeared at either championship game. He has never once showed up to St. Louis, which is bizarre, given that that's the biggest market that the league has. So his involvement has been very little. I know that his investments in the league are a lot less than what they were in previous years, which makes sense, you know, with Mike Rapoli and others in office now. So, to my knowledge, The Rock, I mean, he's still involved, but it's not nearly as much as it was when it was Player 54 in the XFL.
Yeah, you know, I'd like to see him be more involved, but I guess that's the nature of the business. And, you know, the United Football League trying to be sustainable, trying to be profitable, right? And, you know, we've seen the now 3 teams are going to relocate to Columbus, where you'll be today, Louisville, and Orlando. And I'm old enough, James, to remember the 2000-2001 XFL, and they did a great job marketing, and they put a lot of fans in the seats. And I know Rapoli says, hey, we have visions of 20,000 seat fans and stadiums. And, you know, talk is one thing, but now it's time for action. So I guess the biggest question to me, Columbus seems like a good market. Louisville, I'm kind of divided on, but haven't they tried Orlando recently several times?
Yeah. Orlando was recently in the XFL in 2023, and that was with the Guardians. They averaged just under 9,000 fans per game, but a couple things to take into account there. One, it's very hot down there in Orlando when you're playing outdoors, and the team was 1-9. So when you're at a big Camping World Stadium that seats 70,000, it just wasn't a great look on TV. It's going to be different this time around. They're playing at Inter & Co Stadium, which seats around 25,000, give or take. And it's also notable that this stadium, soccer-sized stadium, and it has some overhangs, which does provide shade, which will be very crucial in my opinion. So I think the branding is better of the Storm. It's better than the Guardians. We'll see if Orlando works. I'm more excited about Louisville and Columbus specifically. I think Columbus is a phenomenal untapped market. I mean, Ohio is so big about football, and the Aviators, playing right there where Ohio State fans, Cleveland Browns fans, Cincinnati Bengals fans can all kind of travel out in a relatively close, spot. I mean, Columbus is pretty central in the state. I think it's a perfect fit, and I'm excited for Louisville. If you look at the sports landscape in that city, it is wide open this spring. There's AAA baseball and there's a couple soccer teams, and that's it. I mean, there's no professional sports besides the soccer teams. And let's be honest, if you're a soccer fan, odds are you're not a big American football fan. So I think there's an untapped market there of sports fans, and I'm excited to see how the Kings perform.
All right, we're talking to James Larsen, Pro Football Newsroom, on the All Access Football Daily Show with Ric Serritella, covering the United Football League. Nobody does it better than James. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, James, well, let me ask you about the venues, because I see them shifting to more soccer venues. Will there be any football venues anymore, or is it just entirely soccer venues at this point?
So I think we'll see a mix of both. I mean, obviously the goal is to get into these soccer-sized stadiums, and now 5 of them are in Louisville and Columbus and in Orlando, and now Dallas and Houston moved too, because the other piece of the puzzle is the Dallas Renegades were back as Dallas. They were previously Arlington, and they had the hub system there at Choctaw Stadium in Arlington. That'll still be a practice facility, but they'll be playing their games at Toyota Stadium. Much better fit. I don't know if you caught any games watching on TV of Choctaw Stadium. I'm sure you did at some point. Optically, it looks so strange. So
I was there in person, James.
Yeah,
I experienced it in person. It was not a pleasant experience.
It's just such an odd. So I'm very glad that they're out of there. I think it's good for the league, and I understand why they were there in the first place, because it was a good deal. But with Rapoli really pushing for these stadiums, the 3 that are left, well, actually, there's 6 soccer stadiums because Audi Field in D.C. So we've got 2 stadiums left that aren't. Protective Stadium in Birmingham, and I know there are talks about, if the Stallions stay down there, they could move to the Hoover Met, which is a much smaller venue that fit around 15, 20K. St. Louis, I mean, hopefully they can get back to the numbers that we've seen in previous years, because if so, you can stick at the Dome, if they can get 35, 40,000 there, because we've seen that in St. Louis. Like, that's nothing new for the Battlehawks. So those 2 spots make sense, but yeah, we are 75% of the stadiums are now soccer stadiums.
Which makes sense, and, something I kind of stressed to them when they were first starting, but it takes some trial and error, I suppose, to make it all work. I went to Choctaw. It was the most bizarre football experience. The whole stadium was open. There was people upper deck, there was people lower deck, there was no ambiance. So I do like the smaller venues. But it's my understanding, and I wanted to confirm this with you, that they are going to still have the hub format there in Arlington, where all the teams practice. And I guess my question to you is, how do you establish a connection with the local markets and grassroots marketing if you're constantly in Arlington and then just flying out for the games? Aren't they putting themselves in the same hole that they previously were in?
I mean, that's a really good question, and it's one that we've talked about for quite some time. I mean, I've voiced my concerns about the lack of marketing. I think there's a couple of things. I believe that you can make it work with the Arlington hub system. It's just the problem is you still need actual employees in these cities who are there getting out and marketing. You got to fly players in sometimes for appearances. You got to fly coaches in sometimes. And I think what Rapoli made a comment this week during the press conferences that is encouraging is, most of the time in the UFL the last couple of years, the teams fly out like the day of the game or right before the game. They leave right afterwards. Like, they're hardly actually in the city. This time around, Rapoli plans on, at least for some of the weeks, having teams in there 2 to 3 days before the game starts. So you're at least having that local involvement. You can get players on TV networks. You can host fan meet and greets and, maybe exclusive season ticket holder events and those sorts of things, where another piece of the puzzle is going to be, how do you sell season tickets now? Because the value for those season ticket holders have really decreased, because there's a lot less, kind of like we talked about, right? They've not really been connecting with the fan. They haven't been engaging with the fan as we've seen in years past. And because it's been so hard to sell tickets, last second, they do buy one, get one free, or they're doing big deals. And the season ticket holders are sitting there, they're like, why would I buy a season ticket to pay a premium price when I can show up on game day and get it for 50% off? So there's a reason why we've seen a steep decline in the season ticket sales, which is a big part of the infrastructure of this league. That has to be corrected moving forward, and I'm confident that Rapoli will do what he can to do just that.
All right, great stuff out of James Larsen, Pro Football Newsroom. I know you're on the fly here. A couple quick questions I want to get in with you, James. And I saw something about kind of player allocation in terms of teams regarding their specific markets. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to know other than what Rapoli has gone out and said on air, and really, kind of similar. You remember the Alliance of American Football? I mean, any football sapient knows what the AAF was, and they had kind of a unique player allocation process where players from the local colleges that they'd be placed in that market. Someone played at the University of Arizona, well, they're going to play for the Arizona Hotshots, right? It was kind of that sort of mindset, and that's something that the UFL has not had. That Rapoli would like to bring in, that way in Birmingham, you can come up and you're seeing players that played at Auburn or Alabama State or Alabama, things like that. And in Columbus, he's talked about, if the player played at Ohio State and he wants to go play for the Columbus Aviators, we need to make sure he's on the Aviators. So there's really not many details yet onto how that process, how that system's going to work, but it's in the works, and I'm sure we'll have more details on that soon.
Well, I think it helps towards building the connection with the local fan base markets. I think that's a positive development. Also, I know you've been all over the kind of free agent offseason. This is the first year the United Football League actually had a form of free agency. For the listening audience at home, can you kind of give us details on how it works and the whole free agent process?
Yeah, it's a really unique period right now for the UFL where players who have been on a team for the last 2 years are free to go sign with any team that they'd like. Of course, that's barring that they haven't already re-signed with the current franchise that they're with. We've already seen Matt Corral make the jump. He's been with the Birmingham Stallions the last couple of years, former Ole Miss quarterback, NFL draft pick, one of the top arms in this league. And he's just been in weird spots with the Stallions where he's either just barely been beat out by either Adrian Martinez or Alex Magoo. And then this year, he finally gets an opportunity to be the starter. And then he goes on injured reserve, and he's out for basically the whole season. So for him, he jumps over to the Michigan Panthers, who will be put in one of the new markets. So we'll see where Corral actually ends up. Could be Orlando, Louisville, or Columbus. But I'm excited. I mean, we're going to see more of this coming through. I think right now it's a little bit slow because, again, we don't know where the Panthers going to go, where the Showboat's going to go, where the Brahma's going to go. Like, it's kind of unclear where these teams are going to be and who a couple of the head coaches are going to be. So once that kind of settles itself out, now that we know the markets, those things will come soon, and I think we'll see even more news on that front.
All right. One other thing I wanted to ask you about is the upcoming United Football League rookie draft, and they have not put out anything publicly. I know you've been kind of all over it unofficially, and
Yeah.
is it going to happen this month? Or I know it's been pushed back a little.
Supposedly, but I think a lot of it is going to kind of balance on whether or not they get coaches into place, because at this point they've waited this long that if they can get coaches in these teams the next couple of weeks, they can actually figure out where each team is going, then they'll have it this month. If not, it could get pushed back to November. But I'm really excited for the rookies draft this year. I think it was a really good move by the league to push it back, because in years past it's been in July, which at that point, you're trying to predict which guys who are already on NFL teams, and whether in rookie minicamp or they've signed for the preseason, you're trying to predict like who's going to get cut in a year or two that maybe we could have rights to. Now you're looking at a pool of players that has already been cut from NFL teams, or guys that were in rookie minicamps that weren't signed. Like these are your prime prospects right now to join the UFL, to come into this league. Some of them are going to be stars. Other guys, might need some development before they get to that level. But I'm excited for this draft, and I think we'll see a lot more draft selections signed to the UFL in 2026.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun because it's from the 2026 draft class eligible players that are basically not on an NFL team. So UFL will have a chance to draft some of these rookies. And I hope they have some kind of coverage, James, other than just Twitter posts. Maybe you can find that out today at your press conference.
We might be able to find that out. I mean, if not, I know, us at Around the UFL and Pro Football Newsroom, we'll do live streams every once in a while. So if the league doesn't do one, might just have to. Maybe we'll get you on, Rick.
Count me in. I'm on board for that because I love it. And it's funny because we've got all the scouting reports ready to go. They're just lacking the live stream presence. And I've been told in the past that there's not a market for that, but How do you
There
know unless
is,
you do
because
it? Yeah.
it's 2025, right? I mean, these are the things that the UFL needs to start taking advantage of. Where you're doing a live stream right now on a very low budget through StreamYard. I'm currently in McDonald's on a live stream. Like, this stuff is not that hard to do. Like you don't need to put it on TV. You can put it on YouTube. I guarantee you that if the league did a simple live stream, put it on YouTube, at least 5,000 viewers, at least.
No doubt. I hope we see that. One last thing is I think it's March 27th is the kickoff. There were some rumors they might push it back to the old XFL format starting a week after the Super Bowl. We had Howard Balzer on yesterday saying that weather may have played into that decision. What's your thoughts on that? Because I liked the idea of starting 1 week after the Super Bowl. I thought you capitalized on some momentum there. What's your
Yeah,
take?
I agree with you. I hope we see them move it up, even if it's not the week after the Super Bowl, if it was just maybe a couple weeks afterwards, because multiple reasons. One, weather wise, with all the southern markets that you have, you're playing outside in Texas in two spots, in Orlando, in Birmingham. It gets hot. So having the season up, I think, will help with fan attendance. It's huge for your players because these guys can, instead of, the UFL season right now doesn't end until mid June. And then they can go sign with an NFL team. Like, they're missing OTAs, they're missing rookie mini camps. A lot of these guys, if the season ends at the end of April, they can actually get into these things. So I think that'll be a big piece of the puzzle as well. Is this year, with all the movement, it just wasn't possible. I know the league talked about it; they were thinking about doing it, but between moving Marcus and Rapoli coming in, which is one of those things that, like, they can't bite off more than they can chew right now. I mean, they're already chewing a lot. So that's something that he mentioned during this week during the press conference. They're looking at it for 2027, and we'll see what they do. But I'm with you. I think the earlier start time is better, not just for the league, but for the players and just everybody involved.
Agreed. And then the last change is going to be one format, 8 teams, top 4 teams making the playoffs. Anything else we didn't cover that you have that you can enlighten us with, James?
I think we covered just about it when it comes to the main, updates that we have. I think, the interesting piece that you mentioned about the playoff format changing, I think it's huge for a 4-team league. An 8-team league where 4 teams make the playoffs now, because we saw a couple of years back when the 4-6 Arlington Renegades making the playoffs over the 7-3 Battlehawks, and it's just like, that just, like, in an 8-team league, it just doesn't feel right. I mean, that's a 3-game difference in a 10-game season, and then the Renegades get hot with Luis Perez and they go and win the
They win
championship.
it, yeah.
So you have stuff like that. USFL, the same thing. They had 2 4-6 teams in their playoffs in 2023. 2 5-5 teams in the South that didn't make the playoffs. So I'm a big proponent of it. I think it'll really not just improve things for the league, but the playoffs means we're gonna have the actual top 4 teams now.
All right. Nobody covers the United Football League as well as James Larsen. He is tapped in. He's on his way to the Columbus Aviators press conference. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at James Larsen for all that. Tell the listening audience what you got cooking over at Pro Football Newsroom and all the great content they can digest there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just nonstop UFL news. I mean, if you're a spring football junkie like me, I mean, this for me, it's a passion project, 24/7 coverage. Just announced this morning, Dallas Renegades re-signed Luis Perez, so that's a big pickup for the Renegades. Plenty more signings to come, more news coming your way. So make sure you're tapped in at Pro Football Newsroom and on Twitter at James Larsen PFN or X. I still call it Twitter, but
Yeah,
I don't know
no, me
about you,
too.
Rick.
I'm right there with you, brother. And
Yeah.
anytime I want to get it, the latest, what's going on at the UFL, I go straight to your Twitter account to find out the latest and the greatest. And appreciate the time here, making a pit stop at the McDonald's. And I know you got a press conference to get to. Hopefully, I cross paths with you in person again somewhere down the line.
Definitely. I mean, you're out there, Jersey Shore, right?
Yeah, man. We're
I got
getting it
family
in.
out there. I'm coming out soon, so
Oh, you got,
make sure we.
dude, you got to let me know.
I will let
Gotta
you
ride the
know.
waves, baby.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. Good stuff, James. Appreciate it, man. Safe travels out there.
Thank you. You too.